In many instances, some parts of your model will need to be modified to ensure a successful 3D print. In this video, we'll look at how to deal with modifying detail in your model and discuss different techniques to enable it to be 3D printed successfully. There's three ways to approach modifying thin or detailed elements of your model. Elements could be thickened or simplified to meet the minimum size requirements, turned into a fine surface detail on a thicker base surface, or removed entirely from the model. To begin, I'll scale this model down to an appropriate size. I'll use 1 to 100. Now that this model is at scale, I can zoom in on it and check the thickness of various elements. A helpful tool to do this is thickness analysis. I'll select these seats and tables and press enter. This will display a gradient depending on object thickness. I'll set my maximum to 2 mm and my minimum to 1 mm. This command can take some time to calculate, so it's recommended to use this on selected items, or use the distance command with object snaps turned on as a way of manually checking object thickness. Areas of this model that need attention are the furniture, structural elements, handrails, timber battens, and louvers. First, I'm going to make a new layer so that I can keep my new geometry separate from the rendered geometry. We need to ensure we're working with a clean exterior volume, so I'll use the same techniques as the massing model to remodel this exterior volume. I'll use the command dupe face border to take the profile of this form, and then extrude curve. Next, we can duplicate the front face using dupe face border again, and give it the appropriate offsets. As our scale permits this to be larger than 2 mm, I'm going to turn on the curve edit points, and use the command set point to snap these points to their appropriate location in the correct axes. Next, I'll use extrude curve along curve to extrude this front edge along the surface edge and generate a new solid to use as the front cutout. Now we can use Boolean difference to subtract this from the overall form. Now we can look at the detailed elements. This furniture has a thickness of well below the 2 mm recommended minimum. We could either remove these elements or thicken them accordingly. Rather than attempting to thicken this furniture, it's going to be quicker and cleaner to remodel these as simple box extrusions, which conform to the 2 mm minimum thickness. With O snaps turned on and using the command box, I'll model a simplified version of this seat. I'll use the same technique to model a simplified version of the table. Next, we can look at the handrails. In our render model, these are zero thickness surfaces with circular perforations. To modify this for 3D printing, we can adapt these perforations into a 0.3 mm detail on top of a 2 mm extrusion. First, I'll extrude this surface to 0.3 mm using the command extrude surface. Next, I'll construct a 2 mm thick box and position them accordingly so the perforations appear to be extruding from the box. Now we can Boolean union these objects together. Additionally, we can make another box on top and use fillet edge on the upper edges to give a similar design intent as seen in the original model. You can adjust the radius here. I'm going to leave mine at 1 mm. Next, we can simplify the structure using the command bounding box to generate extrusions. I'll check the thickness of these extrusions. As this is larger than 2 mm, we don't need to modify them any further. On the louvers, I'll use the command scale 1D to thicken these up to 2 mm. After performing these modifications and duplicating the objects throughout the model, we can see the result here. In the next videos, we'll look at how to prepare and mesh our model.